Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Wednesday, May 27th. We're in the Volusia-Flagler TPO conference room for a regularly scheduled Volusia-Flagler TPO board meeting, and I call this meeting to order. How would you call the roll, please?
Excuse Councilmember Sell.
Here.
Mayor Cloudman.
Here.
Commissioner Harriott. Vice Mayor Gillis.
Here.
Commissioner Dance.
Here.
Commissioner Snow.
Here.
Commissioner Martin. Councilmember Tyamson.
Here.
Commissioner Briley. Deputy Mayor Tolan. Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Vice Mayor Grubbs.
Here.
Councilman Sander.
Here.
County Chair Brower. Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
County Vice Chair Reinhardt.
Here.
For Johansson. Commissioner Skidema. Mayor Emmett. Vice Mayor Rogers. Commissioner Nomos.
Here.
Commissioner Sherman. Santore. Mayor Eckert.
Here.
Commissioner Werning. Here. Councilmember White.
Here. Jesse
Jesse Thompson. William Furry. Simone Kenny. Greg Feldman. Nick Mostert. Kaya Powell. We have a fiscal forum and Councilmember White of Ponce Inlet, voting member of the Small City Alliance.
Very good, thank you. Are there any board members remotely participating that we need to approve? I need a motion to approve remote participation, please.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, remote participation is allowed. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. One comment before we get into the consent agenda. I need to apologize to each and every one of you for missing last month's meeting. My fault. I put it on the wrong day on the calendar, and it just happened. Very good. Thank you. Welcome. So I just wanted to apologize to each of you for my missing, dropping the ball on that. And I want to say thank you to Mayor Cloudman for being prepared to pick up as chair in my dereliction of duties. So
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you. And as I told you, we've all done it before.
Well, no, there's nothing more embarrassing than a phone call saying, "Where are you?" Right?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Okay, we'll go on to the consent agenda. Please note the consent agenda was provided for your review. The special item K, the special K, is a rescheduling of the November board meetings due to Thanksgiving holiday, moving it up 1 week. Please take note of that. Mark it in your calendars. We need to get ready for that, okay? The consent agenda is voted on as one item unless anyone wants to pull an issue for discussion. Does anyone wish to pull an item for discussion on the consent agenda? Nothing is indicated as being removed, so I request a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes unanimously. Now we get on to our action items. Action 4A is to review and approve the fiscal year 2026-27 Volusia-Flagler slate of TPO officers for the fiscal year 2026 and 27. Per the TPO bylaws, a recommended slate of officers consisting of a chairperson, first vice chairperson / treasurer, and second vice chairperson / secretary is presented to the TPO board in May to serve a 1-year term. The executive committee met on May 6th and recommended the following slate of officers. TPO chairperson will be recommended Councilman Eric Sander, myself, South Daytona. For first vice chairperson treasurer, the recommendation was Council Member Danny Robbins of Volusia County. The second vice chairperson slash secretary was Councilwoman Charlotte Gillis of Edgewater. These positions would take effect on July 1st, 2026, if approved, and run through June 30th of 2027. Do you have any additional comments for us?
So just one thing to note, this year with the discussion at the executive committee for the recommendation of the slate, it was recommended to retain the current chairperson. This is not something that we have typically done in the past. Our bylaws state that it is a one-year term, but there is no discussion. It's silent on number of consecutive one-year terms. So to continue the continuity of the board moving forward, that was the recommendation from the executive committee.
That's what happens when you miss a meeting.
Comments? Questions?
Congratulations to the slate. Move approval of the slate of officers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is not a roll call vote, is it? Any opposed? Okay. And I did already skip something. I skipped public comments. Thank you for that. I did skip right over it. We'll now take up public comments or participation. And for those who are, anybody waiting for public comments or participation, my apologies. Are there any members of the public present or attending virtually wishing to address the board on items that are not on the agenda? None indicated, none seen. Okay, we got that covered. Action item B is to review and approve the fiscal year 2026-27 Volusia-Flagler TPO budget. Each year, the TPO staff develops a recommended budget for the upcoming fiscal year. The draft budget was presented last month. Ms. Nicholin will provide an overview of the revisions to the proposed budget.
Yes, thank you. So during discussion last month for the budget, we had a line item or an item under the personnel salary where we had allocated a contingency that allows for adjustments based on merit, reorganization of staffing, and that line item was $50,000. There was some discussion about how much we have used of that in the past. So I went back and looked over the last 3 years. In fiscal year 24, that line item was $25,000. And the TPO utilized $21,545. And that at that time was for kind of a reorganization of staff duties. That was the time where we were going through transition. A number of staff members picked up additional duties. So we were able to make adjustments to salaries accordingly. So that applied to staff members only. There was no adjustment during that year to my salary. In fiscal year 25, that contingency at the recommendation of the budget subcommittee was to increase that amount to $50,000. So we increased that amount within the budget, the line item, but we utilized $15,002 of that. And that was for merit adjustments across the full TPO staff. In fiscal year 26, which is the current fiscal year, we still retained the $50,000, but of that amount, $10,850 was utilized for that role. So based on the discussion and looking into those line items, we have made a change to the proposed budget where we've reduced that contingency back to $25,000 and reallocated that money within our budget. And where we included it was in our legal services, because we have a number of administrative documents that are going to be updated over this next year. And our legal will play a significant role in that, either in the lead or as a review for that. So we moved that money out of the contingency for salary and included it in our legal services. The other minor adjustments to the budget come with regard to our revenues. The state funds, when we put the draft budget together, we did not have the final amount for our transportation disadvantage funds that we received. So we adjusted that accordingly. So it was an increase of $690. And then in the local funds, we added additional local funds for any match requirements for feasibility studies that we are going to do. So we added that amount in of $20,000 to the local fund revenue. So if there's any questions or comments about any of the changes or about the proposed budget, I'd be happy to address them.
Comments or questions? Then entertain a motion to approve the Volusia-Flagler TPO fiscal year 2026-27 budget.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item C is to review and approve the executive director's performance evaluation and salary adjustment. For the TPO's contract with the executive director, the executive committee is designated to perform an annual evaluation of the executive director and provide a recommendation to the TPO board yourselves. Each member of the executive committee completed their performance evaluation, and a memorandum summarizing the results of the evaluation was prepared by the TPO's general counsel and discussed at the May 6, 2026 executive committee meeting. The executive committee approved a motion to accept the executive director's compiled performance evaluation and score and recommend a salary adjustment equal to the cost of living adjustment for the TPO staff. Comments or questions on any of this? See none? Pretty easy. Request a motion to approve the executive director's evaluation and salary adjustment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We've got our business out of the way. We'll go on to our presentations and discussion items. Presentation 5A is a discussion of the draft of the 2026 list of prioritized projects. You have a handout that's been given to you. 2-page list of changes to the TPO priority list. Each year, the TPO updates the list of priority projects. Once adopted, the lists are transmitted to the Florida Department of Transportation District Office for their use in allocating transportation funds to the area. Ms. Nicklin will provide an overview of the updates to the law.
Yes, thank you. So the list of changes, up until Friday, we still hadn't had the TIP subcommittee meet. So we were having a difficult time getting a quorum, but they met this past Friday and they rank and review projects on the traffic operations as well as the planning studies. So we weren't able to put this list together when the agenda went out. So that's why it's a handout in front of you today. But I wanted to just kind of walk through the changes to our priority list. So we update the priority list every year, and it's really a series of, I believe it's 9 lists now, based in terms of categories of projects. And the first 3 lists, which are our major roadway projects, our CIS projects, our state highway non-CIS projects, and then our other or local roadway projects. Those priorities are determined in the development of our long-range transportation plan. So we adopted our current LRTP in September of last year. And at that time, we did an amendment to our priority list to incorporate the new rankings of those projects from the LRTP. So there is no change between the amended list of 2025 and this 2026 list for the priority of those projects. The changes occur when any portion of the project is funded or gets moved into the work program, we update those program costs and we update those cost estimates. So we provided those in the updated list, but in terms of the projects themselves or the rankings, they do not change during the process of the annual update. They only change during any type of LRTP activity, whether it's adoption or an amendment. So the main lists that are changed during this project process are the traffic operations and our bicycle and pedestrian lists. These lists are populated by applications that are submitted by the member governments every year. It's a competitive process. Those applications are reviewed based on an established set of criteria and ranked through subcommittees that are made up of members of our BPAC, our TCC, and our Citizens Advisory Committee. We rank those projects, and then based on their score, any new project that comes in gets slotted into the priority list based on their ranking or their scores. So these are the changes to the priority list. So traffic operations tier A list. These are projects that have one or more phases funded in the work program. So this past year, we were able to fund the construction of some projects that only had the design funding. So on this list, the first 4 projects are projects that we were able to do that. The design was already funded. We were able to fund the construction of 2 projects in Port Orange and 2 projects in South Daytona. So now those projects are fully funded on the list. We also have right-of-way and construction funding for State Road 44 projects, intersection at State Road 15A. This is part of an overall resurfacing project, but there's intersection improvements that are being done at this location that is part of that resurfacing. So this is where we were able to work with DOT and leverage some funding, some of our funding to include some of these intersection improvements, but it's part of a much larger project. We also removed any projects that were complete. So there was a series of US 1 traffic signal updates from the city of Holly Hill, and then also the East ISB Beachside Corridor Improvement projects. Those were all completed last year, so they were removed. We also have requests to remove a project from the project sponsor in Deltona. So those were all removed from the list. The programmed funding and cost estimates were updated accordingly. We do receive updated costs from all of the project sponsors. So we have current costs within our list when we go to programming. So we made sure that everything was updated accordingly. The tier B list are projects that are awaiting funding. So this is when a city or government submits an application for funding. This is the list that they initially go on. So whether they're requesting design, right-of-way construction, or all of that funding, these are where any new projects go. Once a project receives funding for any phase, it then moves into that tier A list. So this project or this list adds all of the new projects that we received during this call for project cycle. And then it updates the program funding and any cost estimates that we see. But as you can see within this list, we had 8 new projects that came in, and these are the projects that were ranked and scored this past Friday. Our tier C list is our projects that are submitted for feasibility study. So in order for a project to submit application for project implementation, a feasibility study must be conducted. It does not have to be conducted by the TPO. It can be done by the local government themselves. Some of our larger governments do those in-house, but we do provide that service. So we had 1 new project come in on the feasibility study list from the city of South Daytona. And then we were able to complete 4 studies this past year. So those projects were removed, and actually the first 3 from the city of Port Orange, they were actually submitted for project implementation this year as well. On our bike ped side, we have the similar different tiers of lists, A, B, and C. Again, we were able to fund construction for a project that only had design funding in the past, which was a sidewalk bundle project in the city of Port Orange. And then we removed completed projects. The East ISB Quarter project was also on our bike ped list because it had components of both traffic operations and bike ped and received TPO funding in both of those categories. And then there were 2 projects that were removed by the project sponsor. So we've noted those here and also updated the program funding and cost estimates. On the Tier B list, we added any new projects that came in through our call for projects. So as you can see, we had 4 new ones come in, and then we removed projects at the request of project sponsors. These were projects that they were not moving forward with anymore. From the Tier C list, we also had, these are feasibility studies for bike ped. We had 6 new feasibility study requests come in, so those were added to the bike ped Tier C list. We also keep track of the shared use non-motorized or the Sun Trail list. However, we do not receive applications for these projects. This is a state program, so applications are submitted directly to FDOT. Their call for projects typically runs from September to December. However, they do not always have a call for projects each year. But in order for them to be considered for Sun Trail funding, their project has to be reflected on the TPO priority list. So we have a separate list that is just specific to Sun Trail projects. We do not score or rank any application, but it's just if a local government wishes to apply for Sun Trail funding, we ask that they let us know so we can list them on our priority list. That is a requirement for them to receive the funding.
Question for you.
Yes.
Sorry.
You're good.
If we were going to ask for funding, can we tell you at any point in the year, or is this only updated once per year?
We typically only update it once per year. However, with the Sun Trail funding, because it's off cycle, what we've done in the past, if they do open a call for projects, they did not last year, but the previous year they did. And I think we had at least 3 local governments that wanted to submit. We amended our list in order
Okay.
to accommodate
So
that.
usually it corresponds to their call for projects, whenever that may occur.
Correct.
Thank you.
On page 3 at the top, we have a transit list of projects. These are provided to us by the transit providers. So these are projects that they're looking at funding through their funding sources. They don't submit applications to us and we don't review or rank them, but we do have a pass-through of 30% of our SU funding directly to our transit providers. And then also if there's additional funding avenues, they're able to apply for those as well. So this is just a list that they let us know, similar to the Sun Trail, that these are the projects that they want to pursue. We have 3 new transportation planning studies that came in during the call for projects. 2 of them were from the city of New Smyrna, and then 1 of them was from the city of Lake Helen. And then on the Transportation Regional Incentive Program list, there were no changes. So this is a list where local governments, if they want to be considered for trip funding, which is a state funding source, we have to have a list that populates those, similar to the Sun Trail funding. So this just kind of highlights the changes on the list. It doesn't change any projects that are already on the list or still on the list. The only changes could be updated cost estimates to those. If there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to address those.
Thank you. Refresh my memory, on the tier A list for traffic operations, the Clyde Morris right turn lanes, do we know exactly where that's at?
Yeah, so there's a series of intersections in Port Orange. So
So
Port
it's a
Orange,
series of them, okay.
yeah, Port Orange typically bundles projects together, or similar projects together. They do it on sidewalk gaps, they do it on turn lanes. I don't right in front of me have the locations, but I
I was just curious. And then on the Recanal Bridge Park, thank goodness that's finally getting done. Is that, do we know about when or? The only reason I ask is I got asked that question a little while ago.
About when it's funded,
Well, when it's funded for construction, correct?
it is.
Just out of curiosity. That was all.
It is funded for construction in fiscal year 30.
Third, okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for that. It's very good. And it's good to know that that canal bridge will be started fairly soon.
Yeah,
20
well, I know
2030 will be
matter
here.
to you too, so
2030 will be here very, very soon.
I thought it was around then, I wasn't sure.
Okay. Move on to our presentation item D. It's a discussion of the draft fiscal year 2026-27 to fiscal year 2030-31 Transportation Improvement Program. You have a handout in your packet. The Transportation Improvement Program TIP is a 5-year program of transportation projects funded through the TPO, throughout the TPO planning area. Near the end of the fiscal year, TPO staff works with other agencies such as FDOT and local governments and transit operators to update the TIP. And Ms. Nicklin will give an update on the development of the new TIP.
Yes, thank you. So the list of priority projects and the TIP are interrelated. So how they are connected. So once our priority projects are adopted in June, we transmit those to FDOT for their use and development of the tentative work program, which will occur in August. And then that work program will roll into the TIP that we develop next year. So this TIP is a result of our 2025 list of priority projects and the tentative work program that DOT developed last fall. And they did come and make a presentation here, I believe in January, November or January. They were here making a presentation. So those projects and those dollar amounts are reflected in the development of our current, of the new TIP moving forward. So those are how everything is connected. But I did want to give a highlight on some of our projects within the TIP, including the overall dollar amounts that we're seeing, and then the dollar amounts that are programmed on our set aside funds. So those are the funds that the TPO can direct through projects on our call for projects and other priorities that we have. This does not represent, other than the first line where it shows the total funding, but it does not represent all of the funding within the TIP. Because it's not just our projects that we see here, it's any project that has federal or state dollars on it. So it could be an aviation project, a landscape project, the maintenance contracts that each city has with FDOT are also in the TIP, but they're not necessarily reflected on our TPO priority list, those projects. But what we're seeing in the figures that we've received from DOT, and we received the data in April. It's a data dump that they provide for us for the new funding moving in. So it does not account for any funding that is in this current fiscal year. It's starting next fiscal year. So the first table that we have is the total dollar amount that we're seeing in each of the 5 years of the TIP. And it's common that the first 2 years of the TIP carry more money or more funds in them than the later years. Because what happens when we look at developing next year's tentative work program with FDOT, we're looking at programming those outer years. And that's where we can see if we have projects that are currently funded for design, that where we can plug that construction funding in. So right now we have a little bit under $1 billion in our TIP. And I say right now because one of the first things that we'll do after we adopt this TIP is we'll come back and amend it with what's called our roll forward projects. So those are projects that are in the current year of our TIP, but that they are not finished or they need to carry forward into fiscal year 27. We won't have that information from DOT until the beginning of July. But we need to adopt this new TIP before then. So we adopt the TIP. Any projects that need to carry forward, then we'll come back and we have to physically amend them back into our TIP. They automatically roll forward in the state program, but we have to do an actual amendment to put those projects back into the TIP. So we'll see at that time the total dollar amount within our TIP with those projects that carry forward will increase. The second table shows the set aside funding that we have programmed within the TIP. So we have SU funding. So that's the Surface Transportation Block Grant. So that's the funding that we receive based on formula of population of our urbanized area. And those are the funds that we're able to utilize and fund the projects that we've received in the call for projects. There's also within that particular grant program, SA funds. So those are funds that are not necessarily allocated specifically to our area or our TPO, but they're funds that DOT can use in any area. And I included those here because we do have one of our projects on our priority list that utilized those funds this year. We were able to work with DOT and leverage to receive some of those additional funding. And then we also have TA funding. This is transportation alternatives. So it's also funding, formula funding that the TPO receives based on population in our urbanized areas. And these funds are typically programmed on non-motorized projects, like bike ped, trails. TA funds can also be programmed on traffic operations projects if they have a bike ped component to that. And so we let DOT, when they're funding the project, determine whether or not TA funding can be used or SU funding. SU funding is the most flexible funding that we have. So if there is a component that could use TA funding, then we let them decide and kind of work on that method or the match of the funding. We just tell them what our priorities are, how they fund it with the funds. That's a whole new ballgame for me. So that table represents those fundings that are specifically allocated to the TPO with the additional SA funding in there for projects on our priority list, mainly our bike ped projects and our traffic operations. So the next slide down does show our bike ped projects that are in the TIP. So this includes any projects that are carrying forward. So we were able to fund different phases and any new programming of funding. As I mentioned, we were able to move construction funding for some projects, but this lists any phase that's programmed within the TIP for our bike ped projects. The project at the very bottom, which is the Clyde Morris Boulevard Pedestrian Safety Improvement Project. DOT came a few months ago and gave a presentation on this project. So these are the improvements on Clyde Morris Boulevard through the Embry-Riddle campus. This was a project, it is on our long-range transportation plan. It was our top project, local roadway project, or state roadway non-SIS project. And we were able to work with DOT and program it earlier within our long-range transportation plan. It was identified that we would have funding for this project after fiscal year 30. But we were able to work with DOT, access some of that SA funding, and able to program the first phase of the project in the very first fiscal year 27. DOT with this project broke segment up into 3 different phases. And by doing that, we were able to fund the project in the different phases. So this is a good example of the cooperation that we have and the partnership that we have with DOT to look at our priorities and identify ways to move projects forward, utilizing all available funding, not just funding that is allocated specifically to the TPO. The next slide does show some of the Sun Trail funding that is in the proposed TIP. Like I mentioned before, we don't actually review or rank these projects, but they are important projects to our trail network. So we do have 3 different segments along the St. Johns River to Sea Loop, 2 of them with construction funding and 1 of them with design funding. And the last slide shows the traffic operations and safety projects. So these are projects that have either received funding or currently in there under different phases. And moving forward, we do have a number of projects within fiscal year 27 for construction, which is good to see. A lot of times when we're looking at programming projects, it's usually a lot easier to program the design because the funding dollars amount, but being able to match up and make sure we have construction funding for some of those larger projects, we're able to move those forward. So this is just kind of a summary of the proposed tip. The full document is posted on our website for public review. Following this meeting, we will be uploading it to FDOT for their review as well. And then we'll bring back the completed document for adoption next month.
Good. Comments, questions? Yes, sir.
We'll update you on the Ponce Inlet Sidewalk project, which is actually finally good news. The vision started in 2002, believe it or not. And the application for authorization for a grant program through TPO was January of 2019. At our last council meeting, we finally have 100% design plan that's presented to council and approved. So we're excited about that. We're targeting 2026, first of 2027 to get started. The biggest challenge we currently have is we're working on a loan forgiveness grant through FDEP. And it's for septic to sewer conversion, which would be affected by the sidewalk. So we're trying to make sure we coordinate everything at the same time. So we've been approved for the loan. They signed off on it. There's some language in there that they're still questioning that we have to change. So we're still waiting on that piece from the sewer part. But our projection right now is get started into 26, first of 27. So I'm excited about that. Finally.
Finally, yeah. Commissioner Dance.
Thank you. It's funny, tying on to your comment about 2030 doesn't seem that far away. I remember back in 21, we prioritized our projects, moving the Beulah Creek Headwaters Regional Park to the top of our list of priorities. And now 5 years later, we have that project completely preliminary designed. And these other connectors, the South Oak Kings Multi-Use Trail and the new Lehigh Graham Swamp Trailhead, are all tied into that planning process for the south end of Flagler County and connectivity to Volusia. So to my Volusia council folks, would love to work with them so that we don't have just a dead end at the county line on Old Kings Road where the multi-use trail ends, but we can tie that into the county's plans to realign Old Kings Road into the Roscommon Shopping Center and extend that multi-use trail for the residents on Old Kings Road to go all the way south. So working together, I think, right, we get these projects that cross county lines and sometimes they don't align. So when we see these types of projects come through, we need to work a little bit better to make sure they connect.
Agreed.
But it's very exciting to see. There's a lot going on the south end. Palm Coast has steadily moved south on Old Kings Road as well. So there's a lot of, I think to us who've lived on Old Kings Road for 50 years, it's not, I don't like to see all that progress, but it is happening.
It's coming everywhere. One of the things that I've noted is that we see these projects work through all these different phases, and many of our residents just don't understand the process. And so it's all a matter of each phase being funded properly before it can advance to the next one. And this is a way to show our residents how that happens, the progress of it. We have projects that have been in the works just as long as everyone else. And in the next 5 years are coming to fruition as well. So it's a slow process. It's a matter of, allocating funding for future use. So good presentation. Thank you. More comments or questions? Okay. Our next will be a presentation and discussion of the Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310, program funding. And Mr. Stephen Harris will provide a presentation of the Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310 program funding. Mr. Harris.
So enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities program. That's the formal name. Informal name is a Section 5310 program. It provides formula funding to states and designated recipients to meet the transportation needs of older adults and people with disabilities when their transportation is either unavailable, insufficient, or inappropriate. So formula funds are apportioned from FTA to the state level. In Florida, FDOT administers these funds for rural and small urban areas. That serves as the direct recipient, distributes the money to local subrecipients through a competitive grant process. These subrecipients can include states, local governments, private nonprofits, or public transportation operators. Last month, you approved the resolution, it was resolution 2026-07, to allow governor to designate a recipient for large urbanized areas. And those subrecipients for the large urbanized areas can be local governments, public transportation operators in general. In this table, the top one shows you the apportionments that FTA makes for the entire country. For large urbanized areas, which are over 200,000 population, roughly 60% is the breakdown. Smaller urbanized areas, between 50,000 and 199,999, they get 20%. Non-urbanized areas get another 20%. Now, that's nationwide. For a total of $443 million, approximately. When it comes to the local area, Volusia-Flagler counties, that breakdown works out to roughly a 70-30 split between the large urbanized area, Daytona Beach, Port Orange, Palm Coast, and the large Deltona urbanized area. For 2020, Deltona was a small urbanized area. It's now a large urbanized area along with Daytona Beach, Palm Coast, and Port Orange. FTA also allocates amounts for rural areas. And you can see those amounts in 2024, just over $2 million, and this year, 2025, about $2.5 million. They allocate those to the state, and the state makes those funds available for the subrecipients to apply for. So in the 5310 grant program, we're talking about projects that are planned, designed, and carried out to meet the special needs of seniors and disabled individuals. Projects that improve access to fixed route bus service and decrease reliance by those individuals on complementary paratransit. It also funds alternatives to public transportation to assist seniors and individuals with disabilities. The funding can be traditional or non-traditional type projects. Traditional projects being projects such as buses, vans, wheelchair lifts, ramps, securement devices, scheduling and routing systems, much as equipment, or on vehicles used by paratransit services. Okay. Those vehicles are used quite a bit for seniors and individuals with disabilities. For non-traditional projects, we're talking about travel training, signage, purchase of vehicles to support ride sharing and or van pooling programs, etc. Capital expenses require an 80-20 federal local split, while operating expenses are funded at 50-50, equal split for federal and local. These are other grant programs that are used in our area. And some of them are formula grants, statutory formulas based on population, section 5307, section 5311. All of these grants, all of this funding is within our chip. And there are competitive grants such as the low and no emission grants that Volusia County was awarded for just some of their vehicles. And the areas of persistent poverty grants, Volusia County was awarded this as well. That's to assist in areas that are chronically economically challenged. So this is a table. It shows you the subrecipients in Volusia-Flagler County that applied for the 5310 funding and the amounts they were awarded in fiscal year 24 and 25. We had wanted to show you awards in fiscal year 2026, but FDOT is still working on finalizing that information and could not provide it to us. As you can see, some of these are nonprofits, such as the Cochran Davis Center for the Visually Impaired in Sunrise Community in Northeast Florida, Duval Homes. Others are local government transit agencies, such as Flagler County Public Transportation and Votrans. Now, and the grants that they've applied for, typically the Flagler County Public Transportation and Votrans, they apply for grants in both their urban and rural areas. Remember, we've got urban areas here in Volusia County on the east side. We've got an urban area on the west side in southwest Volusia County and the Deltona area. That's not just the city of Deltona. It includes a population base that includes Orange City, Lake Helen, DeBarry, all of that's in the Deltona urbanized area. These funds, and so Flagler County and Volusia County, they applied where their service areas are both in the urban and rural areas. In Volusia County, our rural area is in the northwest side, Pearson, Seville. Flagler County, their rural area is on the west side of the county, west of US 1. And so those transit agencies, they serve the entire county. They serve both urban and rural areas, and they can draw down on these funds for both of those areas. Now, I should also mention that these awards were not necessarily the entire amount that the subrecipients applied for. DOT, since they administer these funds, they have to set up a process where they would solicit applications, and they have a small group to sit down, evaluate these applications, score them, and then administer the funds based on those scores of those applications. So these subrecipients, these award amounts are not necessarily all the money that they asked for. Also, you'll see with Duval Homes that they did not submit an application in fiscal year 25. So, of course, they did not receive an award in fiscal year 25 for section 53. So, are there any questions I can address or comments regarding this?
Reinhardt.
The Votran part, any idea why the significant drop from 900,000 to 145 from 1 year? Delivered in fiscal year 2024 was 985,000, and then last year was 140.
Well,
That's a significant drop, and we already read earlier in the year that 5310. I mean, they're still talking the budget wise, but there were some questions in the very beginning whether or not there would be significant cuts again to that. So I can see, significant cut to 145. I mean, change.
That's a combination of them submitting different projects fiscal year 25 and the applications that they submitted did not score as high in 25 as they did in 20. They're awarded less when the applications score lower.
Mr. Miller. Or council member.
I just have a question about, so defining, how do we define or what's the criteria for these urbanized areas? So we have one urbanized area that spans from Port Orange all the way up to Palm Coast, and then you have another separate one in Deltona. And so I was just wondering, if we say the distance between Port Orange and Palm Coast is probably 50 miles, whereas the distance between Deltona and Daytona is 24 miles, why would they be considered two separate urbanized areas? But those other ones would not be considered separate.
Because these urbanized areas are, they're defined by the census. They're areas of population. And they cross city and county lines. And so they're the most populous areas, the large urbanized areas, which are over 200,000. But on the east side of the county, on the southwest side of the county, and in the middle, you have an urbanized area. And all of that's defined by the census. And the census is taken every 10 years. The population in those areas will constitute the area of urbanized, non-urbanized, whether it's rural. Generally, you have a large urbanized area right outside is non-urbanized. And as you go further out and the population decreases, it becomes rural.
Yeah, I guess, so is it that there's no gap in urbanized area in between these, like say Palm Coast and Port Orange? Is that why they're considered one versus, I guess I still don't understand I understand it's coming from population and based on the census and that gets updated every 10 years. But I'm saying, why is Port Orange and Palm Coast in the same area when Deltona is not considered the same?
Well, the Palm Coast, Port Orange, Daytona Beach urbanized area, that stretches from Volusia County through Flagler and into St. Johns County. So it stretches across those political boundaries. It's simply the density of population.
And to add to that, it's contiguous.
Right, so there's no
There's no
gap
gap.
and there's
Where
no
there is a
rural
gap
area.
between the east
Okay.
urban area and the west. You've got, the middle of Volusia County where there's no population.
So it's because
They
there's
actually
no like
connect.
rural area in between that separates them.
Correct.
Okay.
And then actually it does extend further than Port Orange, because it goes down
New Smyrna.
Edgewater, part of Oak Hill as well, as part of that urbanized defined area by the census, but it's because there is no gap there where there's a rural area.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Flagler doesn't really fit into this mode of the transit like VoTran does, right? So we don't have the bus system, and a lot of the terminology used in here talks about access to bus stops, other parts of infrastructure that can benefit a transit plan like VoTran, which we don't have. Ours is on demand. So what other areas can we utilize this funding for? I was trying to think while you were doing the presentation of even our sidewalk gaps eligible if they complete a mobility for seniors or that can still have the option to walk to areas or bike to areas versus just transit. I'm trying to think of other ways we can utilize it besides buying buses, which is all we do.
Well, yes, in Flagler County, already have a fixed route bus system. They have an on-demand bus system. And they utilize Section 5310 funds for vehicles. They also use FTA funds for operations. They don't have, to my knowledge, bus stops, but they can also utilize the funding for accessible pathways, leaving the transit facilities. They can use it for other training programs that we mentioned before, signage, ride sharing, or van pooling programs. All of those are programs that both Flagler and Volusia County that they have and they can use this funding for. Some of it is formula funding. Other times they have to submit applications. And of course, since FDOT administers the funding, FDOT would evaluate those applications and administer the funding.
Yeah, I picked up most of that from there. I don't know where that can help us, because ours requires advanced scheduling, so, when we went through the transit process this past year, I think the next step for us is more Uber on demand, short term.
Sure.
So I don't know if that even fits into funding eligibility under this.
It does. It does.
Okay.
And that's something that Volusia County is using that extensively for their full ride program, which is on demand type of program. And in my discussions with Flagler County staff, they are contemplating a similar type of program. It was recommended in their transit development plan.
All right.
So if they followed through and they decide to establish it, they can use these FTA funds to help them not only start the program, but keep it operational on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have their FDOT report. Powell.
Good morning, everyone. As usual, you have your latest construction report as a part of your agenda. If you access that online, you can hyperlink all of those. That should be hyperlinked to CFL Road where information on projects. Start off this morning, just an upcoming project starting in June is going to be our State Road 44 from I-95 South Walker Drive. It's a resurfacing project, as well as lighting and signalization improvements that will be happening, and that is expected to be spring 27. Next, recently completed our projects being given final completion or final acceptance this month. The first one is the Nova Road at Miles Drive. The new traffic signal is waiting on a final acceptance this month. And then last month, the I-4 bridge rehabilitation was completed and received final acceptance on April 13th. Then for our safety moment today, May does mark our youth traffic safety month. Our young people experience our transportation system in many ways, whether that's walking to school, riding bikes, traveling with others, or getting behind the wheel for the first time. As the daily routines change with our onset of summer, more young drivers are, whether that's going to the beach, visiting friends and family, or commuting to their summer drives. Summer jobs. That being said, this month marks the beginning of the 100 Deadly Days. It is very important to call out and let everybody know that's coming up. That's going to be the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And during this time, crash fatalities involving our team drivers is historically increased. This year's campaign is going to be May 25th to September 7th, underscoring the importance of safe driving habits, distraction-free travel, seatbelt use, and community awareness as our summer travel ramps up process. Giving you this information to let you know if you have team drivers or encounter team drivers, to remind them of the importance of driving, putting down their phones, and making sure everybody is or wherever they're going. Lastly, I'll end with our normal resources and CFL roads for lane closures, upcoming meetings, and the most up-to-date information on the projects. I will be on the ultimate information if you put the I-4, and then our Office of Safety website that has good resources for learning and any upcoming safety events. That's all I have for today. As usual, is there any additional questions or dig into any projects that you have questions or looking for updates on?
Just know I had a question.
Yes.
I do. I would certainly like to add something to our city's website about this 100 days. Just what you just said. Can I access that on y'all's website or?
Sure, I can with you. I don't know what specifically. We send out campaigns every month and kind of talk through it. But yeah, I can see what I can get from our office.
That would be great. Thank you.
Here, so,
I have 2 teen drivers, so I appreciate that. The update on the roundabout at Kepler and 44 still says completion spring 2026. I just drove a stock trailer through there yesterday, and there's still quite a ways to go. Do you know when that'll be fully open?
So we're waiting just for the concrete in the middle, right, to be completed.
Yeah, so we wanted to take the city to the landfill because we were having some issues with the cladding around the outside of the monument sign in the middle. So we're working on getting that completed. The latest update I have from the contractor is the 20th is when that'll be going into a 2-lane roundabout configuration.
It'll be interesting to see people navigate it at that point. Since there's constantly people going from the bypass lane back into the roundabout.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're working on some changes to the signage there because it's a little bit unclear. So we're gonna revamp the signage to try to prevent making that maneuver.
Thank you.
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Now on to our executive director's report.
So I just have 2 items today. First, your agenda packet, I think it's the last item in there, is an analysis, initial analysis of the Build America 250 Act. And this is the authorization of the transportation bill. It does approve, or it would authorize, if it's approved, approximately $580 billion for 5 years from fiscal year 27 to fiscal year 30 across the highways, transit, rail, safety, freight, and innovation programs. So there recently been some movements through some of the committees on this bill. Since our agenda packet went out, there's some additional analysis that I've received and some links. So I will send those out as well. This is how not just surface transportation, this is how the TPO is funded as well. So funding that we receive comes through this bill. So we'll take a close look at it as it kind of moves through and any changes to it going through. So wanted to just start providing some of that information as well. And then I also wanted to take a moment to recognize one of our staff members, Stephen Harris. Up here, please. So last week, Stephen celebrated 20 years with the TPO.
Wow.
So we started with the TPO. So in 2006, he was the bicycle and pedestrian planner at that time, focusing on that particular program. In 2016, he moved into the role of transportation planner project manager, where he took on some additional roles. He also is the staff liaison for our Transportation Disadvantage Program and heads up. He takes on work, moved in to take on work on the traffic operations to kind of fill in some of that gap. But we just want to take a moment to recognize Stephen and appreciate him for all the work that he has done since the TPO over the last 20 years. He's been a very dedicated team member, and we really enjoy having him in the office.
Thank you.
And he's always the best dressed person in the room.
Congratulations and thank you for your dedication and hard work. Move on to TPO board member comments. Any comments? Mr. Reinhardt.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Stephen too. I chair the TPO for Disadvantage Board, and if it wasn't for Stephen, that role would be a lot more difficult. So I thank you for your service and how you've made my job a heck of a lot easier. Sometimes that meeting can get a bit challenging, and Stephen does a great job navigating through this. So thank you for your help with that.
Wonderful. Snow.
Yes, I'd like to thank our executive director for spending time with me. I came into this meeting today much more prepared with a greater understanding of what this is all about, and I really appreciate the time you spent with me. Thank you. I also want to mention that our city manager, Joe Forte, is leaving at the end of summer. We do have an interim city manager, but I ask you all to keep this in mind as you network with people. We certainly want the largest and best to choose from as we move forward. We also have a city clerk who has just left. So again, when you're out and about and you know people, I don't want to steal people from other places, not really, but okay, don't send me the name. But any help on networking out there would be appreciated. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, then it's on to my comments. First thing to mention is for the TPO Executive Committee, there will be no meeting next week. There's not enough business that requires everybody to come in. So Executive Committee members are excused for the month of June.
That's why we nominated you again.
No, it's her lining up all the work. And with regards to that, I am honored to be nominated, elected chairman again to serve the committee. It is indeed a great honor for me to be able to do that and to represent this organization at other meetings like Central Florida PO meeting on Friday. So thank you very much. And with that all said, we're adjourned.